So yeah, this is the first slide, and really the main highlight was back in January and early February. I decided to change the focus really away from this personalized private or this pilot program, a student intervention program, the one that I had a lot of like influence in when it came to my own personal approach to math fact fluency, but getting away from that student intervention and a quantitative, quasi-experimental to now a phenomenological inquiry centered around teachers and their perspectives and practices around math fact fluency. So that was a really, really big shift and required a lot of changes. But I think in the end, it'll actually be a lot better. And why I made that change? Well, I was getting away with that kind of closed, narrow, as well as an unproven intervention, like this narrow scope focusing on one intervention, which was really specific. And then there were also some personal, my own conflict of interest, things that I wanted to like fill the pupas in and make sure I didn't do anything that wasn't, you know, aligned with where I think like math fact fluency is at. And then this is more of a larger inquiry about what is going on at the moment in these classrooms to kind of see like a current view of where teachers are at regarding math fact fluency. So that was a huge change. And that prompted a really big shift in my research question, moving away from like that quantitative analysis towards more of a qualitative one, changing the scope to not center on student data, but on teacher perspectives. That prompted as well a lot of like culling, editing, and changing of my chapters 1, 2, and 3, which I was able to go back and when I rewrote these last three chapters, a really important thing I had read was that I should write chapters 2 and chapters 3 before I write chapter 1. Like chapter 1 should come last. And so that's actually what I did for this one. Whereas when I first started, I think I had done chapter 1 and kind of got things introduced in my brain first. And now I actually feel a lot better about having focused on the literature review and the methodology and then gone back to kind of tell more of the story of the data in chapter 1. So I sent out a finished version, an updated version on April 22nd. And then this will also talk about the future roadmap and then simultaneously currently working on IRB, making sure it's aligned to my methodology in chapters 2 and 1, and then knowing exactly what it is I need to include from IRB to make sure I can pass that. And I have timelines on that. And then I'm still in the stage of finalizing some of the appendixes and the attachments that I will use for the study. So chapter 1, just really quickly, I don't think I'm going to dive into everything, but I actually like where it sits now. One of the things that I like about the introduction was it has more of a sense of not defining students based on a deficiency model, but more highlighting and acknowledging the powerful work that teachers are doing to foster math fact fluency. So for me, that aligns better with some of my values. The background of the study still has some data points when it comes to proficiency with regards to like building the need of the study and the significance of the study. We have, according to Stickney et al. 2012 was 50% proficiency in addition and 26% proficiency in subtraction for grade 3, and that was out of 90,000 students. So that's a huge background of the study. And then the statement of purpose, and then my research question, which was really it's still, I think it still needs a little bit of massaging to make sure it can yield what I'm hoping. But it used to be like, how does this one intervention impact math fact fluency? And now it is, what are the instructional practices and perspectives of elementary school teachers in Hawaii regarding math fact fluency? And then how do these perspectives and practices influence the strategies, tools, and interventions they implement? And then kind of talking more about the educator perspectives and the definitions. A sub question is, how do elementary educators in Hawaii conceptualize math fact fluency, and what contextual, cultural, and professional factors influence their understanding and approach? So it's a lot, but I do feel a lot better about these than the previous one. And then this is also chapter one. I like my section on professional and personal interests. I think like Dr. Ideta had really good feedback to include some of the story of like how I believe in knowledge and form knowledge and learn and teach. And then I also have a language acknowledgement in there that kind of talks about some of the language I use throughout the study. And the significance of the study, like I said, there's not a lot of empirical research centering math fact fluency in Hawaii schools. And so I think that can actually yield some really unique results because we have really diverse curricular approaches as well as our approach to math foundations is really something I think can be cool to study. Theoretical framework, social constructivists, and then the phenomenology building on the philosophical assumptions of phenomenology and the phenomenon of the lived experience of educators. And then key terms, really the two big ones are math automaticity and math fact fluency, which can be used interchangeably, but the ability to quickly and recall math facts from memory without conscious thought. And that's the definition that I use. And then I think it'll be interesting to see some of how educators define math fact fluency for themselves. And then I just talk about the organization of the proposal and then the conclusion, more like kind of that connection to like what it is about Hawaii that I love and how can we ensure that the hard work of educators can be honored within this study, and then that translates to children's laughter, and you can read the actual um, talking about the record playing and all that, the music connection. So chapter two, then really I wanted to do something maybe a little different, but what goes on when a teacher asks a student what is one plus one? So I think that kind of helps frame almost as like a metaphor of what are all the processes and that need to happen when it comes to building math fact fluency. So from that, I define math fact fluency. There's three definitions, and then um, this image on the right talks about how one researcher in Australia um, came to how did teachers define fluency? And so this was the image that their research kind of came up with: conceptual understanding, strategic competence, and adaptive reasoning. And so those three things, the Stickney definition, the Hoboken public school system definition, and then the Cartwright's identification of fluency, as those three things are where I'm basing the math fact fluency. And I talk about the importance of it. Math fact fluency, like as a foundational, it is a spiral. It's about building life skills. It allows you to reach more complex math. It's the basis of quantitative reasoning and then higher level learning. So just kind of telling the story of or looking at the literature on why is it important that we build math fact fluency in students. The challenges both of learning it and of teaching it because it is something that engages multiple cognitive domains. It's very complex to learn, kind of like the vignette at the front, and then also engagement and the monotony, especially when it comes to repetitive drills. That's where it leads into the history with rote memorization. How were we teaching math fact fluency 100 years ago? Drills, repetitive drills, and then the concept of number sense, numeracy, like how do we use numbers in our daily life? Strategies then that come when it comes to composing numbers, decomposing numbers, like 8 is equal to 5 and 3 added together, like the decomposition. Then the teaching strategies like counting all, counting on, doubles, doubles plus one, the standards-based debate or the movement towards standards-based learning, and then the conceptual versus the procedural, which are kind of like the new age beliefs on how to combine those two. And I think it's interesting because I don't think it's a debate, but there are different approaches when it comes to what the balance is of conceptual and procedural when it comes to building math fact fluency. So that's in the literature review. And then actually, how do teachers teach it? Um, and then what are student-centered approaches are the next two sections, the core instructional strategies. And then I talk about the data, looking at kind of the three layers of scope from local Hawaii data, national data, and then our international math proficiency data. Educators' perspectives was the next one, and I still feel like I have a lot of beefing that one up, but I think it's good where it's at. But Cartwright and Rude were both like kind of looking at how teachers define fluency and then what are their perspectives when it comes to teaching it. And then I talk about the cultural context of Hawaii. Um, did a lot of reading and a lot of organizing things there to talk about the history of Hawaii, including math education and math perspectives in Hawaii, and then the illegal overthrow, the language suppression, and then the resurgence. And along with the resurgence, this re-embodiment of like ethnomathematics, place-based education, and Hawaiian culture-based education as a way to teach math in Hawaii. And then additionally, I kind of jumped over it, but some of those student-centered strategies of like technology, game-based learning, um, and then creative mathematical reasoning, memory-based retrieval. So just kind of highlighting all that. And then the gap really is the intersection of math fact fluency and in Hawaii and what that looks like. Okay, chapter 3 really changed things up here. Rewrote a lot of chapter 3, but the phenomenology approach, looking to talk with teachers about the wholeness of their experience when it comes to teaching math fact fluency, just the research procedures, the research question and sub question, the research setting, why I'm choosing independent schools, where they have the diverse curriculum, teacher and student population. So within those schools, the teachers that have access to, and then the influence on the number of students. And I think sample selection, again, why I'm choosing that uh, approach when it comes to talking to independent school teachers, and then ensuring the ethical considerations, human participants, the protocol that I'll go through, the questions themselves, data collection, the actual process of going through semi-structured interviews, data sources, and the analysis, and then highlighting at the end my role as the researcher, as the primary instrument, data collection. So this is all the stuff I still have to do. um, but a lot of it has to make sure that I'm in congruence with APA. My organization on chapter 3, I think I need to make just some updates to formatting checks, continue to ensure that the writing is up to the standard, guide the study away from how it was originally written with focus on the math fact data. Although I need to highlight the data, it's more I need to make sure that the study is geared more towards how teachers approach the instructional practices and the core strategies, and then incorporate necessary feedback, plan the defense date and time, which I'm getting really close to the end of the semester here, but we'll get there. That's what I'm telling myself. And then aligning IRB questions to the proposal. And I'm in the process of building an IRB application at the moment. And then completing the next slide timeline, which this is the most recent updates. So today's presentation, recording, updates, and this full timeline where I hope to submit IRB by June 1st, have the week of May 4th, have a proposal defense. I'll need a collective decision by that point, but that's really soon. So I know that might be tough. June and July await IRB, and we have our 3 summer classes, respond to any feedback and make necessary adjustments, and then data collection in the fall, conducting all the necessary steps, and then January to April, data analysis findings. and then editing chapters 1, 2, and 3, and completing chapters 4 and 5. And then this time next year, hopefully, fingers crossed, to be in final defense mode. And that is what I got. So just some things. Oh yeah. And then this is the document that needs to be completed after the proposal defense, which I'm still pending. But yeah, I think that was yay. I think that was right on time. I think that was like right around 20 minutes. So yeah, thank you.
Could you please go back to the slide
Yeah.
with the research questions?
Yeah.
I love your new research questions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Sure. My thought on research question 1 is that those are 2 questions because you
Sure.
so instructional practices is 1.
Right. Perfect.
And make how do these
Mm.
be research question number 2. So don't change that in any
Yeah.
way, but it's not
Just split
one
it.
research question, actually 2.
Right.
So I would split that out.
Right.
Copy that, just make the how to a second question.
This part.
And then
Something like that.
perfect.
Okay.
And then talk to us a little bit about your sub question 1. How does
Mm.
that differ for you from research question 1?
Mm.
Because it's
Similar.
a cultural piece in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So question or sub question 1, the at least for me, I had in there, I didn't have it in any of these, but some of my drafts were about the definitions regarding like how would a teacher define math fluency. And I think that is an interesting inquiry because there are like quote unquote textbook definitions, but then it would be interesting for me to see. So that's when I kind of thought about like conceptualize like what concepts do teachers hold around math fluency? And I think the concepts then connect to this concept of like the context of Hawaii. I mean, it's going to be different for a 5th grade teacher that doesn't maybe isn't actively teaching math fluency than it is for a 1st grade teacher who this is like a part of at least like Common Core and their standards. And then cultural too. I think this one was just a way for me to kind of get at the definition for a teacher without saying have them define it. But I like cultural and then professional factors too, because I think in one of my questions I asked around professional development when it comes to what are the uh yeah professional I think I say let me see what might they need in order to enhance or foster math fluency, what are the professional aspects. So yeah, a little different, but yeah.
But there's a couple of things I think you can do with this.
Okay.
One is either make it like a legit research question.
Right.
And if it becomes a
yeah.
real full-fledged research question, I would probably move it up to number 1.
Oh, okay.
Because the way teachers define it and conceptualize it is important.
Yeah,
right?
that's
That so it could be that,
right.
or it could be turned into a interview question,
Oh,
not a research question,
sure.
but like an early interview question.
Yeah.
Then you kind of get their definitions or their ideas of the concept,
Right.
and then you launch into practices. So either way would work. But there's a way in which I love it. That's why I think it's great. So having it as like a sub question, it just doesn't do it justice to it. So either you make it and again, talk to McCullough because I'll talk to further her, but it's either so important that it becomes an actual research question, or it becomes one of your leading interview questions to kind of set the tone for the rest of the conversation. Yeah, so those are just a couple of my thoughts. But I love it. You've come a long way when it comes to,
yeah, and I think so. Actually,
you might already have it. So,
yeah, and that's so I
but
have
again,
this
it can either stay there
as
or it could be a legitimate
research question
So,
on its own.
Yeah. So
Yeah. No. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. That's really good feedback. And yeah, I was just kind of poring over those questions, and it's a lot of like sometimes I'm like, oh, is this too word vomity? But but
Because that's what they're important. They
yeah,
write specialized research.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
it's good. It's good. I'm very proud of you coming forward.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a lot. I sometimes feel like I wrote two different
It's all part
chapters,
of the
one, two, and three.
process.
But
It's
yeah,
all-
in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made it, it's just a lot stronger than it
Yeah.
was.
Okay. I'm shush now. Jen, any questions to start?
Hi, sorry. I got it all to work on my phone, so
Oh, nice.
apologies. That's why I keep going off because I have to turn the screen and look at the slides. But yes, I really love where you've gone with this, Charlie. I think it's like so um it's really something that like needs to be talked about. And so I don't know what I mean, and I wonder also, I haven't read through your methodology yet, but
Mhm.
like, or how you plan to choose your teachers and how you
Mm.
plan to like learn about their backgrounds, because like
Mm.
I think there's a generate like when I
Oh,
went to grew up, I did like wrote. We
yeah.
sat and we had like these times tables that we recited and we had to memorize.
Right.
And that doesn't happen anymore. But I have really good math back fluency because of that,
Right.
because I had to do that. And but I didn't have some of the other kind of background that now they do teach, which I love, that they
Mm.
are taught like this number, this sense of
Yeah.
what numbers mean, and all of
Right.
that I think is really really interesting and strong in the way math is taught now in elementary classrooms. But so I think it's going to be fascinating and
Mm.
really start a really great conversation between among first of all from your results and having them be really interesting for other teachers to learn from your work.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so this is what now that I've been wondering though, all along this way, like um, there's different cultural approaches to math
Mm.
fact fluency.
Yeah.
So there's Kumon. So what do or there's,
Yeah.
Chinese school, which you go to on Saturday. And
Right.
I haven't ever been to those, but there are these like, I mean, my daughter went to Kumon. And so I'm wondering how that kind of comes
Mm.
into play, because that is a very specific way of learning these math facts,
Mm.
learning, being able to be very fluent and exact kind of what from what I saw from her Kumon. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you like, you
The
know,
Yeah, the cultural variations in the approaches to teaching math fact fluency.
yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm not, I know that you probably aren't interviewing Kumon teachers,
Right.
but there's that piece of it in Hawaii, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's everywhere, but certainly in Hawaii, you have a lot of kids that go through that kind of
Mm.
extra,
They observe.
math learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may influence how teachers, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it may or may not, but I think that's
Mm.
something that's very Hawaii, Hawaii based, or our context,
Right.
certainly.
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I know, I mean, well, I know not a bunch about Kumon, but kind of like their like I have limited knowledge, but I know that they have like pretty strict curriculum and a lot of like not I think it's just like a very uh yeah, I guess the way I would answer that is I that's a great question on where other institutions feel their approaches like align with math fact fluency. I don't know, and I guess I would think when I think about the scope of this research, I am interested in kind of getting the landscape generally of like the approaches to teaching math fluency, but I think my scope has to be at least somewhere where I'm like, oh, I know that this is like I have more access to teachers in independent schools. I think that'll help kind of build that. But I guess it's like, oh, I don't know the exact approaches outside of like um like a larger umbrella. Because I think that like Kumon would be like more of like intervention
Mhm.
or like enrichment, and so it's not within the structure of elementary school classroom.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, I don't
But
know.
certainly, yeah,
Yeah,
certainly it's like the extra, but
right.
that's part of, so I guess I'm
Okay.
thinking about it from a student perspective.
Mm,
Um, well, no,
yeah.
well, I mean, but I think it's what you have set up looks really great. And I know it was probably quite hard to
Yeah.
rewrite everything, but I think you're probably like just so much stronger for
Mm,
having gone through that process and thought through this journey of the journey of your topic to
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely a lot different from where it was just 6 months ago in a good way, in a good way. And then, oh yeah.
Questions.
Yeah.
Um, we're not saying you must include Kumon teachers,
Right,
right?
right,
So
right.
don't
Yeah.
hear that, right?
Yeah.
And this is what faculty do, right? For you, say, what about this? What about that?
Right. No,
What
no,
about
it's
this? What
good.
about that? And it doesn't mean go do it all.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
just means like, why have
Think
you
about it.
settled on what you settled, right? And
Yeah.
if you hadn't thought about it, think about it.
Right, right, right.
And if you already have, roll your eyes at us and be like, oh,
No.
I thought of, tell us why, right?
Yeah.
So I love what you started to say, and then you were pulling back, so I
Yeah.
coach you, right, to stand in your confidence. And clearly you need to think about this question a little bit
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But you are not interested in interviewing Kumon
Right,
teachers.
right, right.
And not having access to them, or the way you said it was you have better access
Mm-hmm.
to math teachers in independent schools is not the answer, right? And you're
Mm.
not saying that's the answer. That was the first thing that came out of
Right,
your mouth.
right, right.
And then you're like, well, but they're also like an enrichment program and they're
Yeah,
extra, and they may not have kind of the same, so
yeah.
that's the answer, right?
Right, right, right.
So as you're thinking about why not including Kumon, and please, if
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense, then don't do
Yeah.
it. But think it through so
Mm.
that when questions like that you are asked,
Yeah.
you are clear why you're choosing to focus on A and
Yeah.
not A and B.
Not
Because
A.
we'll say, what about B? What about C? Oh my God, do you think about Z?
Right,
What about
right, right.
ZZ and DD? And please, we're not saying do all of it.
Yeah.
But why did you settle on this is the question. And so I heard you saying,
Right.
you started to, and then you pulled back a little bit, but that's
Yeah.
exactly where you need to go, because you are clear.
Yeah.
This is your area of expertise. It's
Right,
like
right.
martial artists as well. But
Right,
as a
right.
student, you are clear as an educator and a math teacher
Mm-hmm.
about what you're going for here.
Yeah.
So I want you to stand in a little bit of confidence around
Right,
that,
right,
okay?
right.
Because you've been through battle to get to
Yeah.
this place, and you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You get to speak with confidence about that. Just
Right.
wanted to coach you on that.
No, that
I
is
hope that was okay.
that's
Carmen.
no,
Oh
that's
yes, of course, of course.
no, that's really good. And I think I was trying to do that, and I was like, oh, and then I was like,
Yeah,
oh, but
I saw you.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So stay
yeah,
around that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's good feedback for sure.
And how are you gonna solicit your colleagues? Like, where will you start? If you got IRB approval tomorrow,
Yeah.
you stopped your proposal defense yesterday, what would you do today? Like, how would you start reaching out to people?
Mm.
You got a core group of colleagues that you start with, and you
Yeah.
snowball from there?
Yeah, exactly. And I had written that in there, and I do have two attachments when it comes to like the reaching out and the email of proposals. And I do think there's a like a good sense of when like the snowball, the fact that like in this environment it is a unique question posed, and I think people will be willing to come to it, as well as then the direct outreach to the people I know within the community. And then one of the other things was there's the oh shoot, it's in here, but the math circle or the math educators circle. So it's a professional group that I'm like, okay, well then maybe I could reach out to a professional group that has a bit more broader reach. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's a good question though. Because then I think sometimes I'm a relatively linear thing. I'm like, I gotta do A before I can do C, but then this process has taught me it's like you need to work on a lot of it at the same time because when things go and you can get going. So I have a lot of that in place, but I am also a perfectionist too. So I'm like, I want my chapters 1, 2, and 3 to be perfect. And then it's been a good practice to let go of that idea. So like it doesn't actually have to be perfect. It's a draft until it's done in a year from now. But I'd want it to be good because it's my work. Yeah. And it is
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where I'm at too. Cause I'm like, I know what I have thus far is well researched, good work. I think I'm still trying to make sure it's the right direction for because I felt like I had it in a good sense. Um and then I just have to make sure I'm again still on the right track. Yeah.
Sorry, John, I
So,
didn't to
oh
interrupt.
yeah.
What's so sorry?
Mhm.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
After,
You have one question.
oh,
Go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm yeah, no, I really it's really been great to see you this question evolve, the study
Mhm.
evolve. And I think it's like this the seed of it has always been through the different versions, but
Right.
this is I think this is really a very rich place for you to land on. So yeah, just go
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree too. And now and it was hard in those couple of days and weeks where it was like, shoot, I have to really pivot. But I never was like upset about it because I was like, it's gonna be better. And maybe I couldn't have seen that at that time, but yeah, I know it'll be better in the end. So sometimes you have to like you have to pivot to make the final thing better, which I'm confident in. Now it's just about like hitting the check marks that I need to hit so that I can like fulfill an obligation to myself, the research, the question, my cohort, my leaders. Yeah.
I don't even think you pivoted because I really feel
Yeah.
that way because it's a
Yeah.
different study.
Yeah.
But you have to walk those initial steps in order to get here in the process.
Yeah, true.
Right? If we just transported you from where you were to today, right here with you
Yeah.
now, we wouldn't have been able to appreciate, right, how it's all interconnected.
They
So
didn't have to make it that hard though. I'm just
I
kidding.
don't know. If you ended up doing something like, I don't know, language arts fluency or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
originally you were doing that,
Right.
that's a pivot. This is a
Right.
journey.
Yeah.
And were on a journey, you are on a journey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay. And then you're also human. You get to be upset about this
Yeah.
because it's hard. This is hard
This is hard.
stuff. That's why you're gonna be doctors at the end of this, you
Yeah.
know? But I appreciate you saying that you are able to now
Yeah.
appreciate sort of how you had to go through all of that. You
Right.
gotta evolve in order to get to where you are today. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's for me too. It's like, oh, I get now what it means to have like expert level knowledge. Like, because I've read so much about math fact fluency. It's like, oh, I actually feel really confident about that now. And we were talking earlier, it's like, I think I'm a great seventh grade educator. It is a part of my practice because I have a really deep understanding of math foundations. And I have brought up kids who come into fifth grade at kindergarten level and brought them back up, and I've come into kids that are on third grade and seventh grade and brought them back up because of foundational math knowledge. And then hopefully this study will highlight the good things that educators are doing at the moment to foster math fluency, which is like a celebration almost, which is I like that. And the other model too was like felt really deficit minded and that didn't feel right either. So like, oh, I don't want to define. I actually wrote in there one of my quotes is like, I'm not defining kids by data. I'm not defining teachers by data, but this I think will like numerical data. And then in my positionality, I'm like, I actually had to rework my original understanding of like rigorous research to me was always quantitative. And so this has been a really good process to be like, actually, that's not the case. But yeah, both. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, research has to change you. That's
Mm.
the deal.
Yeah. Yes.
Or if you're doing research, it's going to change you. So there.
Exactly.
Good,
Yeah,
good, good.
agreed. Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining, and I only have 3 minutes left, but but I do appreciate the guidance, and I'm excited for the feedback because it's um I think it's really close, but I know that a couple I need a push here and there to further some things, but where it is, I'm like, all right, I can stand in it a lot more confidently than where it was.
Walter joined us too, Jarvis.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll talk to you.
hi. Hello.
Hi, Carolyn.
Oh, it's all fuzzy. It's fuzzy.
Oh,
Here.
Yeah. And then I'm recording this for Dr. Alan Castor and Dr. Schofield. So
Awesome.
they're gonna get it and give you back. But thank you.
yeah, well done.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording and end the call. But thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.